In this video, I'm going to show you how to install Windows 10 on an AWS EC2 instance. We'll cover how to get a running instance, enable Elastic Network Adapter so you can use them with modern instance types, and even install Nvidia vGaming drivers in case you want to use your instance for gaming or content creation. You'll also find a link to a written version of this guide in the video description, where you can quickly copy and paste commands and download all the files you need. So, let's load the intro, and in the meantime, why don't you give me a like and a subscribe? Now, why Windows 10? AWS lets you install Windows Server on instances, which should let you run most games and software. However, certain programs, especially games, are simply not compatible with Windows Server and require a desktop version of Windows for stuff like Xbox Game Pass and the latest version of DirectX. Now, AWS doesn't just let you choose a Windows 10 image, you have to create one yourself. So, let's get started doing just that. Okay, so the first thing you'll want to do, if you haven't already, is to download Windows 10. So just go to Google or whatever, type Windows 10 ISO download, click on the first link typically, and we'll select an edition, Windows 10, confirm. We'll choose the language, which is English, confirm. And make sure you choose the 64-bit download. And that download, as you can see, has started. Now, in the meantime, we'll create our VM. So let's go ahead and open VirtualBox. And we'll click New. And I'm going to call it Windows 10 Pro. Maybe increase the RAM a little bit. And yeah, okay, create. Now, the most important thing here is to make sure that you choose VHD as the hard disk file type. Other than that, the default size, as you can see, is 50 gig, but that's fine because it's dynamically allocated, so it will only use as much space as it needs, which is typically about 20 gigs. Okay, so the download is now complete. So we'll just go to the settings for this VM, go to storage, and for the disk, we'll choose a disk file, and we'll choose the ISO that we downloaded. Okay, and we will run it. Okay, so we'll go through a normal setup here, just configuring my date format here and keyboard. Okay, install. Now you're asked for the license key or product key. Now obviously this is where you'd enter it, but in my case I'm not going to enter it now since I need to create images of this thing and I don't want my product key to be in those images. So I'll just click I don't have a product key. But when you do that, you must make sure you choose the right version of Windows. So it has to be Windows 10 Pro, in my case, and then I'll enter a license key later. Accept the terms, custom, next. Okay, and we'll just let Windows install. Okay, so the installation is complete now. Waiting for the first boot. Okay, so we're in the initial config here. Now it's mostly the same as you'd do in a typical configuration of Windows. Now, when it comes to this step here, I would recommend you don't use your Microsoft account to sign in. Instead, click Offline Account. And yes, Microsoft will bitch that it wants you to use an online account. Just click Limited Experience here. It's not really limited. Okay, and we'll go ahead and create the account. On second thought, I'll just set my first name here. Okay, password. And now we need to set these security questions, whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna pretty much disable all of the crap that Microsoft asks you to enable. Okay, and we're in. So now there is a guide which I've written on GitHub as to what you should do at this point and upcoming points as well. So the link will be down in the video description, but basically this is it. And you have all the sections here as to what to do. There's also a link to the original guide written by another awesome user. So we've already done this, so we'll now go to this step. So I'm actually going to follow my own guide here. So the first step is to allow remote connections to this computer so we can connect to it later. So we'll click here and we'll search for allow remote connection, allow remote connections to this computer. And as you can see, there's this setting here, change settings to allow remote connections to this computer. So click show settings next to it and then click allow, and also disable network level authentication since we're not going to be connecting from the same network. Okay, so we'll click apply and okay. Okay, so next, one thing I would do is make sure that I have all updates installed, since it's much easier to get those initial updates now. So we'll search for check for updates. And there should be quite a few updates since the latest ISO is from October 2020 and it's currently March 2021. So this will probably take an eternity to install all the updates.
1 hour later.
Okay, so the updates have finished installing, finally. I've also installed the VirtualBox tools so I can get a decent resolution for the purposes of this video. You do not need to do that yourselves. Right, so following my guide, we can see here that we need to install EC2 launch. So I'll go ahead and install that on this VM. And that should download the installer. Okay, so we'll go ahead with the setup. Basic install. Okay, so we're done from this VM side, so we can go ahead and shut it down. Now, the next steps we have to do on our own machine. Now, if you haven't already installed the AWS CLI tools, make sure you do that. You can find download links here for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Okay, so I already have them installed. Now, one thing you'll want to do after installing them is configure them. I'm going to very quickly show you how you can do that. So basically, you can click on the link in the guide, which will take you to the AWS console. Go to access keys and create an access key here, unless you already have one. Now, I already have one, but I'm going to create a new one just to show you how. Now I'll delete this one since you can only have 2 at a time. Okay, so I'll create a new one. Now, I'm not going to bother to blur this, guys, because as soon as I finish recording this video, I'm going to delete this access key. Okay, so don't even try. All right, so I have the access key details. So now I'll open up a terminal and I'll type AWS configure. And it asks me for my access key ID. So I'm going to open up the key that I just created and I'll copy the access key and paste it here, and the secret access key, which is here. You will also be asked to choose a region. Now you should set this to the same region where you're going to run your server. In my case, it's Frankfurt, so EU Central 1 is the correct choice, and output format should be JSON. Okay, so with that done, we'll proceed to creating an S3 bucket. Okay, so we can copy the command from my guide. So I'll call it Tech Guru rig. Okay. The bucket name must also be all lowercase, guys. Okay, so that's my bucket name. Make sure you remember this for your case. Next, we need to go to the location where there's the VHD file for our VM. So in my case, that should be in VirtualBox VMs, Windows 10 Pro, and yeah, this is it. This is the VHD file. Now what I'm gonna do to make my life a bit easier is I'm gonna rename it so it doesn't have spaces in it. So let's just rename this to Win10 Pro.vhd. All right, so now we need to simply copy this file into our bucket. So let's do that. And our bucket is called Tech Guru Rig. Yep. And the file name is Win10 Pro.vhd. Okay, so the file is now uploading. Now I don't usually have much success uploading with this method. Typically I just open Chrome and upload there, but whatever, I'll let the upload carry on here and see whether that works. Okay, so the upload has been completed. So now we need to create some documents which will be used to create a role and attach a policy in AWS. So continuing on from my guide, grab this file, trustpolicy.json, and download it. And I'm just gonna change the extension here to remove the txt part, and I'll open it. And as you can see, this is just basically a command to create a role called VM import. You don't actually have to change anything in this file. So then we just copy this command to create the role. So I'll go here. I'm gonna go to my downloads folder, which is where the file is, and I'll paste the command. Okay, so that's created the role. Now we need to download role policy.json. Again, I'll download it and rename it. Okay, so in this file, we need to specify the name of our bucket. So where it says bucket name here, I'll change it to the name of my bucket, which is Tech Guru Rig. And same goes here. Save it. And then I'll just paste this command. Okay, so now one last file to get, which is this one here, containers.json. So we'll download it again, like before. And what you need to do here is change the bucket name and the file name. So in my case, the bucket name, as we've just seen, is Tech Guru Rig. And the file name is Win10 Pro.vhd. Save. And yeah, we can now run this command. So what this file does is it will import the image from S3, creating an AMI, basically. So we'll go ahead and paste that. And that will start the process, okay? So one thing you should know is that this takes a while. As you can see, there's a progress here. And it obviously starts at 1, okay? Now you'll want to periodically run this command here to check on the status, okay? So notice here the import task ID is import AMI 0 DB3 A6, etc., etc. So I'll press Q And then every now and then I can run this command, which will give me a progress report. And as you can see, import AMI, OD, 3B, blah, 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 it's at 19%. So basically you have to keep checking until that activity is completed. So let's wait for this to happen. Eventually, as you can see here, it will say completed, which means that the AMI has been created. Fantastic. Okay, so now we can go back to the console and we can go to EC2. And if I go to AMIs, you can see that, which one is it? It's this one here. You can see here that there is the AMI that we have just imported. Okay. You can see here it says platform details, Windows BYOL, that's bring your own license. Okay, which is basically what we've done here. And now we can use this image to create an instance. Now, before I do that, what I am going to do is give it a name. So I'm going to call it Windows 10. Yeah, that's it. Now I'll launch it. So actions, launch. And I need to select an instance type. Now, you will find that some instances aren't available. So for example, if you want to do some graphics work or maybe even game on this machine, you'd normally choose one of these G4 types, but they're not available. And if you hover here, it says this instance type requires ENA support. That's Elastic Network Adapter, which we don't have right now. But don't worry, in the next section, I'm going to be showing you how to enable ENA so you can actually get these working. For now, though, I'm going to choose some other instance type. I guess I'll choose this one here. And next, I can probably leave all of this default. Yeah, okay. And I can choose the amount of storage I want. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to leave this as 50. But, you know, you can choose whatever else you want. So, yeah, that's going to be 50. Next, I can add some tags. Yeah, sure, why not? Name, Windows 10 instance 1. Okay, next, configure security group. Now you'll want to make sure you have RDP, okay, on TCP with port 3389 open for everyone. Now what I've actually done is created another security group, which is this one, where I've also opened a UDP port 3389. You don't necessarily need this, but you know, why not? I mean, technically RDP uses both protocols. You'll also notice there's port 8443 open here, but that's just for nice DCV, which that's another video. Okay, so we click review and launch, blah, 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 launch. You will need a key pair. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to create a new key pair, and I'm going to call it Windows 10 BYOL. Why not? And download. And we'll launch the instance. Okay, so now view instances. And there you can see my instance is now launching. Okay, so once the instance is in a running state, you'll want to connect to it. So just click connect, go to the RDP clients tab and download the remote desktop file. Okay, so we should now be able to access this machine. So I'll click on the RDP file. Okay, so continue. Now you might get this error that you couldn't connect because your account has been disabled. That's because we didn't set an administrator password. Now that's no problem, because what you can actually do is open the RDP file you downloaded using a text editor. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code here, but it doesn't really make a difference. And then all you need to do is change the username here from administrator to whatever you set your user account to, in my case, key. Okay, so now we should be able to connect. Yeah, There you go. I'll enter my password. And there we go. We are now running Windows 10 on Amazon EC2. Now, we're technically done. We have a worthy Windows workstation willfully working without worries. If you want to use a latest generation instance type, such as g4dn for gaming or some other type for content creation, you'll have to enable ENA, Elastic Network Adapter. To do this, we need to make some changes to our instance and then create an image, which will have the ENA enabled. Is this a pain in the ass? Yes, it's a pain in the ass, but it's the only way we can do it. Once you have that though, you'll be able to choose any instance type when running it. Okay, so the first step is to install the driver on the running Windows instance. So I'm gonna bring up Windows PowerShell. There we go. I'm gonna right click and click Run as Administrator. Okay, so now I'll copy the command from the guide. And it says this provider is required. Do you want to install it now? Yes. Are you sure? Trust all, eh? Okay, so that's installed the AWS tools for Windows PowerShell. Now, just like we did before, we need to configure our credentials. So what you want to do is copy this part here from the guide. Now, what I would suggest is that you paste this in Notepad. And then obviously put in your access key and secret key. Okay, now copy the whole thing and paste it in PowerShell. Okay. Now, if you get this error when trying to run the command, don't worry. Let's go back to the guide and copy this part here. Set execution policy. And we'll say A for yes to all. And then we'll try the command again. Okay, see, no error now. So that has successfully run. Lovely. So next, what we need to do is download the ENA driver. So I'm just gonna copy the link and download it straight onto this VM. Okay. And we'll just need to run this install PowerShell script. Okay, so if you get an error, that's probably because you need to be in an administrative PowerShell. So don't worry, that's what we have here. So simply go to your home folder and like downloads, and we have AWS ENA network driver, and we need to run the install install.ps1 script. Installation was successful. Fantastic. Okay, so now what you need to do, as shown, is to shut down the instance. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So what we need to get now is the ID of the instance. Now, if we go back to the AWS console and go to instances, you will see that the instance, which is still running, but it should be stopped soon. Anyway, what we need is this instance ID here, okay? So go to the guide and copy the command. And then where it says instance ID here, you'll need to place the ID of your instance. So I'm just going to remove that. Copy the instance ID and paste it here. And as you can see, it says false. So what this means is that even though we've installed the ENA driver on the instance, ENA hasn't been enabled on this instance, but luckily we can enable it quite easily. Okay, so all right, we can go back here and copy this command this time, and this will enable ENA support. So again, we'll do that, and we'll replace this with our instance ID. All right, so we can now run the previous command, and as you can see, that has been set to true. So ENA should now be enabled for this instance. We should start the instance just to make sure that everything is okay before we create an image. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to instance state start. Okay, now the instance is running. We'll just connect to it again to make sure that everything is okay. And yeah, everything looks okay to me. Okay, so now what we can do is we can create an image from this instance, which means that whenever we create an instance from that image, it will have ENA support as well. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and shut down this instance. Okay, so the instance has stopped. So now we'll just say actions, images and templates, create image. And we'll give this a name. I'm going to call it Windows 10 with ENA. And blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. Create image. So now if we go to AMIs, you see that there's this new image here being created, and I'm actually gonna tag it with the same name as the image. So I'll do this. Okay, so we'll just wait for this image to be completed. The AMI has now been created. So now what we can do is we can launch an instance from this AMI. Now, in order for things not to get confusing, we can remove the previous AMI and its associated snapshot. So I'll just select this AMI here and I'll say deregister. Now, if I go to snapshots, this snapshot can be deleted too. You can tell them apart by the time. Okay, so we'll delete it, and we can then go to instances and terminate the current instance. Instance state terminate. Okay, so now those should all say terminated. There we go. And actually we can remove the volume as well. So that would be these two. Yep, these two. Okay, so now from the AMIs, you can see that we have our new AMI available. Let's go ahead and launch an instance from it. So I'm going to choose it, actions, launch. And as you can see now, more instance types are enabled, including the g4dn instance type. Okay, so we can choose that for gaming or content creation. So I'm going to go ahead and create an instance here. So yes, I'll leave everything as normal. Add tags. I'm going to call this guy Windows 10 instance 2. Security group will be the same as before, and the keys will be the same as before as well. Now remember that to connect to this new instance, you will need to re-download the RTP file, since the IP address will be different. Okay, So what you need to do is you need to click Connect, RDP Client, and Download. And we should now be able to connect using this new one. Again, I'll need to use that trick of changing the username from the file. And here we are, connected to our new instance on a latest generation instance type. If you've come this far, you'll probably want to install some proper graphics drivers to make full use of the machine. We'll install Nvidia vGaming drivers, which are provided by AWS and specifically configured to work on EC2. Okay, so one thing you might want to do before doing this is to reconfigure the credentials. Sometimes they get lost for some reason or another. I think the process of creating an image actually strips them out. So that's no problem really. All you need to do is go back to find the section where we set our credentials, which is here. And again, as before, we'll open a notepad document. There we go. And just replace those values with the ones we got before from the AWS console. So my secret key goes here. Actually, my access key, and my secret key goes in this part. We'll copy and paste. Okay, so now we can go back down here and copy this string of commands into PowerShell. Okay, now press enter. And what's happening here is that the available Nvidia drivers customized by AWS are being downloaded to your desktop, as you can see here in this Nvidia folder. Okay, so now we'll open the folder, Windows latest. So let's extract this zip file. Okay, Windows, and there we go. So we need this version here. See, Windows 10 or Server 2016 or Server 2019 64-bit. So this is the version we'll need. We'll just double click on it to start the installation. And it's a normal installation from here. Okay, so that's installed. So we're not out of the woods yet. We need to add a registry entry, which we can do from PowerShell. Permission denied. Okay, so make sure you do this from an administrative PowerShell. Okay, let's try that again. All right, that worked. And now we need to download the certification file from AWS. Okay, so that should be it. So what we should do now is restart this system. So we'll go here and restart. Now obviously this will disconnect us from the instance. So we'll just go here, wait a while until the instance restarts and then connect to it again. Okay, and we're back in here. And there we go. See, the Nvidia settings control panel shows up. Now just to confirm that everything's fine, there's one last command we can run. This makes sure that the driver is licensed. So we can actually just run this from a command prompt. And you'll get a lot of information. But if you scroll through it, you should find, there we go, see this part here. Okay, product name, Nvidia vGaming, license status, license. Now the last thing you want to do is create an image from this instance, just like I showed you before, so you can launch new instances directly with both ENA support and the Nvidia driver. Our task is complete. We now have a Windows 10 workstation with support for the latest instance types and good graphics. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any problems following the content, leave a comment down below and I'll try to help. In the meantime, I would really appreciate if you could like and subscribe. It really helps this channel. If you want to make sure you don't miss future technical videos, make sure you tap that bell icon to be notified of new ones. I'll catch you in the next one, and until then, thanks for watching.